We had a member, Bobby Kilmurray, who said that I plant bulbs because I believe in resurrection. And each year I'm proved right as they rise in the spring. And I think of that every spring, though it's been many years since she's gone. And it is a beautiful metaphor for me for Easter, is that hope rises again. And whether the story is meaningful or is an allegory or however you are in that story, we know that there is mystery and beauty and life and love. Paul Beadle said, in all sacred literature, the hearts of the storytellers are revealed in their stories. Their breath is felt in the words on the page. And may we be touched or moved or stirred by their ancient art. And maybe we can glimpse a truth that they saw if we read closely and reflect on what we have read. And we can get a glimpse of the later interpreters saw if we serve up the symbols as a separate dish rather than baking them into the story. We need a chance to savor each perspective. And so for me, I know Easter was all about bunnies and jelly beans and trying to find eggs. And I never did find that golden egg. I don't know if any of you did, but I was always jealous of the folks that found the golden egg. And so what do we look for in this time of year? What is our golden egg? What is our hope? What is it that we hope will rise? And I think for many of us, times are difficult. We're concerned about the economy. We're concerned about politics. We're concerned about many people who live in this nation and in the world. And so Easter, is synonymous with rising again. And how do we as a people, with our spirits weary and tired of the news every day changing, how do we rise to meet that? And I think with thinking about the Christian mystics and what they focused on, we're going to hear a song by Julian of Norwich. All will be well, all manner of things will be well. And when I read that, I said, will it? Will it really be well? And then she said back to me in my head, all will be well, all manner of things will be well. And it may not look like that or feel like that, but on some level, many people have gotten through hard times. And the way that we get through that is belief in the people around us, a belief in a deep and abiding love. Jesus, if anything, talked about loving your neighbor as yourself. And that's really a challenge for a lot of people. And to think about, what does it mean to love our neighbor? It's to believe them, to honor who they are, to welcome them to our table, but also to hold them accountable to the community. We can't just welcome some people and say, sorry, you're trans, you're an immigrant, you aren't from this religion. To be welcoming at the table means to look for a beloved community. And the example that I think that I see in the Bible of Jesus is that he sat with the people at the well. He sat with the prostitute. He turned over the moneylender tables. He said, feed the poor, clothe the poor, feed the hungry, and love the children. And so these, to me, are basic and beautiful things that we can take from the teachings of Jesus. UU minister Reverend Daniel Budd said, we received an invitation from our new neighborhood newspaper to place an ad for Easter. Someone suggested that we should advertise, and it should be something like this: join us. We're not sure what happened. Right? People always my colleagues tease me around Easter, and they say, well, what are you guys doing on Easter? And I usually say, well, we talk about the social justice Jesus. And we talk about hope and love and rising again. We just sometimes interpret that in different ways. And the name of this service is, what we cannot see. And there are so many things that we cannot see. Someone said to me recently, did you know the universe is expanding so much, we really don't know how far or how wide it goes? And when we think about on the ocean, we don't know in the depths what kind of life we keep discovering and all the beauty of, thermal vents, the amazing life that can survive there. What life will we find on other planets? What life will we find in our own backyards as we move away once it's above 50 degrees, Kate Vinslund? Don't clear your yards. You got to let those butterflies rise too. So I think, life is a mystery. I think about how did everything happen? There's of course evolution, there's thoughts, but for life to exist in this barren universe is a miracle. It is amazing. And I think we can really look for that joy and that beauty, especially right now. We need those beautiful babies, those laughs, finding the eggs on the lawn. So what happens if we don't know and we're not sure what happened? But we know what it's like when someone appears with a message we feel offers hope, who inspires us in new ways of living, touching our hearts and lifting our spirits, teaching us to love our neighbor and move out of bigotry. And then you think of the story of the empty tomb. I think of the times when I have looked in dark and lonely places, hoping that something will be there. The women who came to the tomb looked for the body of Jesus. They hoped to take care of it properly, with respect, that they hoped he would be treated, but instead they were faced with nothingness. In bleak times, I have looked for community, love, and relationship, and sometimes I have found what I'm looking for, and sometimes I find an empty tomb, and I feel lonely and afraid. Sometimes you give up and walk away, and other times you sing a song of rhythm, rhythm of life. Anyway, the end of that song to me is everything about Easter, everything about spring, everything about finding that life again, because it's joy and it's saying we are a part of life, not separate from it. We are sacred, you are sacred, and that's how we will treat each other. That's how we'll treat our planet. So one of the hardest things to life is to sit in mystery, and I think that's why there are not millions and millions of Unitarian Universalists, because to say we don't necessarily know is a place of searching, is a place of, well, I believe in this and a little bit of this, or I'm not quite sure yet. And to go into that, we have classes called Building Your Own Theology, and we'll be offering that in the fall. And many people who have come up here to this podium and shared what they believe take this class or read books to figure out, what is it that makes my heart sing? What is it that I can say, yes, I believe in that? And it's really easy to say, no, I don't believe in my childhood religion, or no, I don't. But what about it do you believe in life? What is it that you claim, and what gives your heart new life? So we think about the traditions that we were brought up with. Some of us grew up in churches or synagogues. Some of us grew up reading books and going to the park. Not all of us came up in traditions. But when we think about the things that shaped us, the things that we can hold on to, I think the power of being a Unitarian Universalist is that we can transform words. For some people, church is a hard word. They might have been told you don't belong in church because of who you are or how you are. Or for some people, worship is like, well, what does that mean? And that's one of our favorite things to say during the new member class. And we say, worship comes from the word worth shapen, which means to shape something of worth. And that to me is a whole different idea than maybe bowing down or giving my thoughts to someone else to tell me what to do. To shape something of worth is beautiful. My memories of Easter were a big Easter basket, eggs full of candy, a new dress, and often being scolded to not scuff my white shoes. As an adult, I looked for Easter as a time of examination, planting seeds, planting bulbs, knowing that these small miracles are coming again. And Unitarians and the old Unitarians had a pretty straightforward interpretation of Easter. They knew that Jesus wasn't God, which meant Easter became more of a human drama. The old Universalists had a pretty straightforward interpretation of Easter. They knew that hell didn't exist, which meant everyone gets to heaven, which meant that Jesus didn't die for our sins. But what about us Unitarian Universalists, where we've got atheists and pagans and Christians and seekers? What does it mean to us? What does this old holiday really bring to our heart? And I think being human is one of the great exercises of being challenged. Maybe we can think about what is the mystery and miracle in these hard times. I know the fact that hope doesn't die. Hope rises again. New life will come again is a saving message to me. When Jesus asked what is essential in religion, he replied, 2 commandments I give unto you, love your neighbor and love God. And for some of us, God is God. For some of us, it is an idea or maybe some sort of ultimate truth. And for some of us, we don't believe in that at all. Maybe we believe in each other. So after a cold, long winter, each spring, the Wisconsin landscape suddenly comes to life. A former member, Brian Larson, used to always tell it. He'd say, at these latitudes, the extreme changes of the flowers, and he would just make all these popping sounds and get really excited. And to see spring here is like a full body event. You know, you watch out here, and there are some of the first blooms of crocuses, and now there are tulips. And I wonder, what is blooming for you? What beauty have you planted, or do you want to plant? Because we have that ability, not only in our gardens, but in our hearts, in this community. You know, I see people every week over in front of that federal building, you know, bringing up hope, talking about people's worth, banging a drum. I see people talking about a green sanctuary here in our congregation, you know, caring for the planet. There's so many ways to have hope and to plant seeds. So as a liberal clergy person, I speak as a person of faith. And that word faith is like, oh, that can also be a really hard word. But I like to reclaim words because I get the right to have the words too. I don't claim a creed or doctrine. I claim faith in my own spiritual journey, my own right to find what is true. Resurrection, what does that mean? If we think about our community, people have the rebirth of courage. Life goes on after tragedies, after the death of loved ones. And our own Phoenix Park was out of the ashes, a beautiful place again. So what is your empty tomb? The place where you find the unexpected, to challenge everything you think you know. Amen.